Welcome to the Market Your Tradie Business podcast. This is episode number 14, and today I'm sitting down with Scott Clements from Inertia Engineering. I'm so happy to be having this conversation with you today, Scott, because I know you have a lot to share. So welcome. How are you going today?
Good. I'll definitely try my best to share. Thanks, Cassie. So thanks for having me.
The reason that I actually got in touch with Scott in the first place was because I heard an outstanding interview that he did on another industry podcast. And to be honest, I really resonated with his story and his message. And I thought that the Market Your Tradie Business listeners would also feel the same. So let's get into it. So I always kick these things off by asking the same question, which is tell us about, I guess, who you are, what you do, and who you help.
Yeah. So Scott, obviously, my business is a consulting engineering business. So I'm managing director of that. We have around about 75 staff members specialising in structural, civil, and flood engineering. We do projects from houses and house renovations all the way up to large industrial portfolios, some infrastructure works, and tall commercial buildings in the city. So broad range of mostly building focused projects, but also land subdivisions, parks and wildlife work, all sorts of stuff. What probably drives us is probably more important, and we have I guess what you call a tagline is our passion, your success. So what that means to us is, if we can align what we love doing, and mostly for engineers and technicians, that's solving problems. I think in general that's probably what humans love doing, but certainly engineers, most of them came into that because they love solving problems, which is, I guess, our passion part. If we can align that to our clients' success, to really understand what success looks like to them, then that drives our business.
Yeah, and I think it's so interesting when you see businesses that have these taglines and they really live and breathe it, and you can tell that you guys really do, from all of the things that I've heard you say before, and how your business is just absolutely having so much growth in it at the moment. So tell us about, when did you actually start the business? Like, how long have you kind of been on this journey?
I might actually touch on the tagline quickly first. It's interesting because we came up with the tagline after we were living and breathing that. That sort of presented itself in the business first, and then the name or the words came from how we were already acting. So it wasn't something that we said, oh, let's go and do this, and then we started doing it. It was the reverse, I guess, and really understanding what we wanted and what we could give as well. I've been involved in the business since 2008. It was actually started by my business partner in 2005. Back then, we were 3 people when I started, and we did small renovation and housework for most of the time for a couple of years. I had started a family, so I was a bit too busy doing that rather than growing a business. But in 2011 is probably when I say it's the real start of our business, when we moved into a larger space. We started to hire more staff. We got serious, such as marketing and websites and things like that. So Inertia, and the name change too, actually. It was called something different before Inertia. And that's when we changed the name.
I'm no mathematician, but from 3 staff to, did you say 75 or 78? That's a lot of growth.
Most of that's been in the last few years. In fact, start of COVID, we were 30 to 35 staff. We looked at a couple of opportunities that came out when, I guess, everyone got a little bit scared when COVID started, and we probably went the other way. Not necessarily strategically at first, but it became a bit of that. We looked at it, what's the old saying? Never waste a good crisis, and it seemed to work for us. Yeah.
That's awesome. And if you think back to, like, I guess, in that moment of that decision making in the crisis of COVID, obviously a lot of people were in business at the time, and some people will be new to business since then. What went through your mind? Like, how did you kind of come to that crossroads and say, okay, we could see it this way, or we can kind of take a different approach?
I always see an opportunity, and I'm a bit of an optimist in things. Now, back at that time, was I seeing that straight away? Definitely not. At the time, it felt like, as everyone knows, it felt like the world was ending in a sense and everything was shutting down, and what are we going to do here? I guess the start was rallying the troops, seeing what we had, getting everyone together, getting everyone tight around, being realistic about the situation, but what we were going to do to get through it together, rather than as sort of individuals, but together as a group. And then I guess over time, we're probably lucky. We had a few larger projects that kicked off that kept us moving through that initial period of COVID. And then I think what happened was, because other people freaked out, there was opportunity out there. Other people were dropping key staff or closing offices or worrying about, what they were going to do next. And there's sorts of small opportunities at the time for us became pretty big successes now a couple of years later.
That's amazing. I always get so inspired hearing those COVID stories of successes, and, whether it's investing or whether it's business, like, it's so interesting to hear how it can be so one direction for some people, and then other people have gone like the complete other way.
Yeah,
in
definitely.
The same, starting apples for apples type situation. So it must have taken a lot of, effective leadership for you during that time period to get all of your team on the same page and make sure that they are all 100% on board with the direction when they're probably feeling quite worried, concerned, anxious about the state of the world.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, that's something that I've been working on my whole life to an extent. I've sort of always gravitated to being a leader, liking to, I guess, partly because of being, sort of in charge of my own destiny, but also found myself in coaching and captaining positions all the time. And I think that's because ultimately I liked guiding and inspiring people. And really, I think that's what a leader's all about. It doesn't really matter what the business is. It's about, caring about people and maybe challenging them sometimes, but also seeing them grow. And that is probably what my personal purpose is at the moment, at least anyway, and what I sort of get out of bed for. So it was about that. It was about communication, a lot of communication, which not necessarily always my strong point, but at the time, being very open about the situation, open about where we were, and communicating throughout the team and having other people do that too. So I am lucky enough to have a number of people in the business at senior level that are just as good or if not better at that side of things as well.
Yeah, and I think having that, really strong team around you, it's obviously essential, especially with a business of your size, but leveraging each other's strengths. What you're good at is going to be different to the next person, and working together to form that cohesive and, strong management team, I think is fantastic. And I could honestly sit here and talk about leadership for hours, as that's, a big part of my career history, but we are here to talk about marketing. So I want to ask you, going back to that first couple years when you, let's say from the 2011, when you got serious about this is Inertia, this is who we are, what was that marketing journey like? Like, how did you get your clients? What marketing did you do at the time? Maybe you've got some things that worked really well and maybe some things that didn't work so well.
As we know, as a services business or a tradie business or a building business, the most effective marketing is obviously word of mouth to start with. Do a good job, get the next job, and get that person to tell their 10 friends about you as well. So definitely early stages, it was about that. However, I sort of took a break from being an engineer and engineering business for a while and went into actually construction, marketing and finance. So I was exposed to a different level of marketing than what most services businesses would do, particularly engineering services businesses. We were talking about retail, sort of stage marketing, TV commercials, radio commercials, print, everything. So I could see how effective it could be if it's done the right way, and how important it was. Competitors in our market, but also in the whole construction industry, is that it's probably a pretty weak point for most. People think marketing isn't a thing, or it's a waste, or it's something that should be done by others, and we're somehow devaluing what we do by marketing it. There's this sort of old school feel about it. But ultimately, I say there's two parts of doing a good job. It's doing a good job and then it's showing people that you've done a good job or telling them. And ultimately, if you believe that you can add value to something, it means you can add value to someone. You can add value to multiple people. So why not share that story as well? For us, it was mostly pretty simple. It was a lot of branding, mostly for us being professional services, LinkedIn, site signage, obviously being very clear with the branding and consistent with the branding, so it was recognisable. Site vehicles, stories on LinkedIn, interviews on LinkedIn. Probably, I would say, if in talking about content of marketing, what always resonates with people is other people. So having people in our marketing is really important for us. And I think it differentiates us. There's a lot of competitors just talk about projects, and really people don't work with projects. They work with people. So they want to see who's behind it.
You're speaking my language. That's such a key message for what we do in the video production side of the business. It's like, people do business with people. It's so important to have your people up in lights and showing your team and your customers, like they want to see themselves. Like your customers want to come to your website and see how they fit into the picture. And that isn't a picture of a building. It's a picture of happy customers.
Yes.
They want to see how they fit into that story. I'm really interested by what you said about that kind of mentality that a lot of businesses in the construction industry sometimes have, which is marketing's not important. We don't need it. Or, any of those reasons that you gave. Why do you think that is? Like, why do you think it's kind of perceived that way?
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's interesting because there is certainly, I've talked to builders or I've talked to other engineers, and it's almost, and people that have come from other businesses here I'm recalling one in particular said to me, when I first came in, I didn't believe in all this marketing stuff you're talking about, Scott, but now I've seen how effective it is. I think that it's weird. It's almost like a dirty word. Sales is a dirty word and marketing's a dirty word, but that's sort of all we do all day in a sense of being humans. We're selling something to someone, whether it's, trying to sell your partner to make you a cup of coffee or your kids to do something or a client to accept that you're doing it the best way for them. Why people shy away from it? Probably a bit of fear, probably a bit of unknown. And for some reason, some think that it devalues their service by marketing it. It's a strange thing. I don't have a clear answer for that. They're all guesses.
No, I think they're pretty good educated guesses. I'm still trying to understand it as well. Like, and having these critical conversations with people in the industry, and it's you're right. It's just sometimes it's seen as this yucky thing with this yucky word that people are like, or I don't want to get in front of the camera, which is fair enough. Like that terrifies 99% of people. So not just the construction industry. So obviously the industry is so busy at the moment. Like what do you think's driving the growth, especially within your business? Do you think that it's going to stay like this? What's your view?
That's a crystal ball question that I don't think anyone knows the answer to at the moment. I think that is not going to be as hectic as this, hopefully. Clearly that this is probably only time in decades that we've had money being invested in mining infrastructure and development. And I think that the whole economy is a bit overloaded because of that. And obviously then we're constrained with resourcing as well from lack of migration and people moving overseas during COVID as well. In fact, the federal government put out the 10 most needed jobs over the next 5 years, and one's civil/structural engineering consultants and the other one's construction management professionals. So 2 of the top 10 are in the construction fields, and they're talking about real shortages for 5 years in those areas. So they obviously think that there's still going to be a lot of work going on. Yeah. And I tend to think so too, particularly in South East Queensland. We've got obviously a whole bunch of drivers with the Olympics coming up, and there's the government spending a lot of money before the Olympics to get spending out of the way so they can spend more during the Olympics too. So, and with that, they'll be, with infrastructure spend, services spend, there's population growth. So everything will follow.
I guess even in the residential sector as well, outside of, growth from commercial projects and government grants and everything that's going to be happening with that. I guess a lot of the listeners for this podcast will be that residential builder or, trade that supports the residential industry. It will be really interesting to see what happens with, interest rates rising and everything
Yeah.
over the next year and how that impacts as
Yeah,
well.
we've got obviously the two things that'll pull us back a bit, and that's obviously why interest rates are being rising or being lifted, because we need to sort of take the heat out of it a little bit, and particularly in the construction industry with the ridiculous increase in prices in supplies and also trade. Labour. I think that won't affect it that much. It will short term, but hopefully it just puts it on a bit more of a level field. I think that there's still so much value in southeast Queensland compared to the southern markets that people come up, they've got plenty of money to spend, and they'll still be renovating houses and they'll still be buying new ones. In fact, I recall in just after GFC when I started, a lot of our work came from renovations. People went, well, we won't do something new and big. We'll do a small renovation, and people still had money, so they still wanted to spend it. And the population growth obviously drives all that as well. So if we, as expected, in southeast Queensland have that, and Queensland in general have that population growth, then there's always more things that need to be built.
Yeah, that's it. I think there's always going to be someone who wants to do that renovation or build that home or that property. It will be interesting to see what happens with marketing as well. Like, everyone's so busy at the moment, and like you say, it's like that, I can't, I don't want to market my business, or I don't want to do that. But I honestly think now is the time, more importantly than any other time, to be getting ahead of the ball game in regards to marketing, because as things do kind of maybe drop off a little bit, that's when you're going to need to be in front of those right customers for your business, or the people who are actually spending money.
Without a doubt. I have a mentor that says the most important time to market is when you're the busiest. He's not saying that in a really direct sense. It's more to say that you take your eye off the ball and you stop marketing because you're so busy, and then 6 months later you're really quiet, or 12 months later you're really quiet. And don't forget that what got you to that point of having a great pipeline of work is that you talked to people and you did a great job, and you did some marketing as well, so that it backed it all up. And something that we're conscious of at the moment, we've got a huge pipeline of work, but that gives us the opportunity to market to really who we want it to work for, in not just in a year's time, but in 10 years' time. So
when you say that, are you talking about kind of building out your brand positioning to be known as a certain type of, I guess, like skill set, or like a specialist in a certain type of area?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And well, for us, it's probably multiple areas, but yeah, we could move into different markets market segments that we're not currently dealing with, that might be, where the money's going, I guess. For a tradie, it might be something as simple as, I'm doing renovations now, but I'd love to be doing big new $5 million houses. So how do I start to build a profile where I can start to eke into that space? Or I'd rather be doing shop fit outs. So how can I start to work through that? And obviously, at the moment, if you want to move into a different space, there's so much opportunity that it's the right time to do it. But you just got to do your day job at the same time as the background stuff.
Yeah, and you're so right. And like, as a tradie, like, what can you be doing right now to use the jobs and the opportunities that you have available to you to get that content, so that you can position yourself on your website, on your social media, your LinkedIn, your Instagram, whatever it is, like, get more and more and more of the type of work that you want to be doing, or the types of customers. Capitalize on those jobs by getting that content, and then you can start to really build out that brand positioning over time. And it's so much easier than maybe in 6 months or a year's time, when you're like, okay, I'm ready to start going into this area now. Oh shit, I actually don't have anything to show that I can do that type of work. I've got no collateral to actually back myself up. And like you say, people want to see, you've got to show people what you can do. It's not about just telling them. You've got to show them.
Definitely. And it's probably, as you're talking, grabbing that collateral is actually a relatively easy thing to do if you plan it out and put something in your calendar or your diary around it, and just make sure you do it on a consistent basis. But the other thing I was thinking is that it's just as important to what you don't put on there as what you do put on there. So stop stop showing all the things that you don't want to be doing any more of, and profile more of the things that you do, and then that'll stand out to the market.
Yeah, if you're that, renovation builder and you want to be doing those luxury homes, but you're still posting videos of you building a pool or a fence, it's not really painting the right picture to your potential clients, right? And I know that, Scott, you've got some really great ethos when it comes to marketing about your values and communicating your value. I think that would be very helpful for the listeners if you don't mind sharing a bit about that.
Yeah, I guess it goes a little bit back to how we started, our passion, your success. So to deliver the most value to someone, you actually have to understand what it is for them. Obviously, for most clients, particularly a tradie client or a builder client, that's money. But ultimately, there's probably 30 or 40% of the market that, they'd probably pay more to do something differently, or get a different service, or get a different result. So unless you're actually asking the question about really understanding upfront, before you've put a pen to an estimating piece of paper, what do you want as my potential client or customer? What do you see your success as in this space? Generally, obviously, there's three things that are the basis for, I guess, the levers you can pull. One's time, one's money, and one's comfort or stress, I guess you could call it. Now, there's plenty of people out there, and you would know, and obviously that listeners would know around the trades, that the time one is probably a huge one. The money one, I reckon it's not as big as what people think if you can demonstrate the other ones. The stress one is huge. People have a fear of hiring trades sometimes because it's just too hard. And if you can make it easy and you can make it timely, then you can charge more. So it's just understanding what does your success look like, or what does their success look like, and positioning around it.
So when it comes to communicating your value, understanding what your customer really wants in the situation and which of those three is likely to be the most important to them, and then really coming in strong with your message to say, this is how we solve that problem of making sure that it's not a stressful experience. This is how our processes are really, really clear and simple. This is exactly what you need to expect, even if it's like maintenance tradie work, like, emergency electrical or plumbing work. Sending a picture and saying, this is who's going to be coming to fix your tap today. This is their bio, like giving some information up front and saying, being really clear about what to expect. That will blow people's socks off because they're not going to expect it.
Yeah, well, it's all about trust. That type of idea is fantastic because all you've done is send a photo and an introduction, and all of a sudden they trust you because it's not a no name sort of thing, and there's a connection already.
Especially if it's just like a woman at home by herself or with the kids, if or the partner's away or something, can be probably quite intimidating to have someone come to your house that you've never met before. So something like that could be a really good solution to build that trust, like you say, which is literally the most important thing in construction, is trust.
Yeah, definitely. And what we like doing is just adding a little bit of character to it too. So like something personal about that person, sharing something about them so that it gives that connection straight away. And you don't have to be everything to everyone as well. So you don't have to resonate with everyone. I think a lot of people are afraid to share because they're afraid to annoy a part of the market. But really, that's not important. The important bit is having a really deep, strong connection to the people you want to work for. And
if people get the backup or don't like what you say, they were probably never going to buy from you anyway in the first place.
That's right. Well, it certainly wasn't going to be a long relationship. They might buy the first thing, but they were not going to go again.
Yeah, so. Exactly. Okay, well, we are pretty much getting to time. So thank you so much, Scott, for your time. This has been incredibly valuable. I'm sure that the listeners are going to get a lot out of this conversation, and we really appreciate your insight.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Cassie.
No problems. Thanks so much. Otherwise, here's to building trust and being remembered. Have a great week, and we'll catch you in the next episode.